And thank you for watching KTN News and welcome back to News Diary. But now we go straight to Spice FM, where we have Annette Wangia, Senior Principal Prosecution Counsel, as she talks about matters to do with the judiciary and specifically prosecution. Let's cross over them and follow that interview live.
Friday, well, maybe not so much. Let's talk through the morning. Still Spice FM, KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting every weekday morning on Spice FM, on KTN Home. We are now also live on KTN News and as well live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. Our guest is Annette Wangia. She's a Senior Principal Prosecution Counsel at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, ahead of the International Anti-Corruption Day 2023, taking stock of the fight against corruption in this country for the last 20 years since the ratification of the convention, UN Convention on the fight against corruption. So, Annette, you were telling us the work that the ODPP does in taking these cases through the prosecution process and the challenges that you face. And you, as we were going to the break, you said, you know what, we actually have made a lot of progress. We are making very many strides. We are getting very many convictions going through the courts. Really?
Absolutely.
In corruption cases?
Absolutely.
In this country of ours?
Indeed.
For example?
So I know that.
So caveat, Eric is looking for the names of people that we know whose names have gone through the system and have been charged.
Blood on the street.
Yeah, blood and guts spilled on the street. Yeah. Not the people that we don't know about.
Give me a moment. I'll get back to you on the exact names.
Okay.
But indeed, we are getting convictions, and not only are we getting convictions, Eric. Now, one of the things that is happening is that, you know, it's not enough for us to have someone in jail. It's because when they're in jail, they're still costing us money.
Yeah.
What we want is that when someone has
Kill them.
No,
Okay.
we are not killing them.
Okay.
We are. We want the money to come back to the institutions. We want the money to go to do the jobs that they're supposed to do. If a road was supposed to be built, let's have that road built. If a hospital, a school, let the money go there. And so we are really making a lot of efforts towards following the money. And so we do that in two ways. One, we go through the court system, and we've talked about that. That's a long and complicated process that we have to come to the end. And at the end of that period, we say, okay, you've been found guilty. We expect you to pay us back 2 billion shillings.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with that is that in the 5 years it has taken us to convict, the money has gone. You know, it's dissipated. And so one of the first things we are doing is freezing of assets. As soon as we say, there's something fishy happening here, there's some money that has suddenly appeared in your bank accounts, let's freeze these assets as we investigate. So the EACC is empowered to investigate. Basically, you cannot explain why you have the amount of money or assets that you have versus your income. So if we look at your employment, maybe the businesses that you run, it's not commensurate with the money that you're holding. And so we go to court and we tell the court, look, the EACC has investigated and has established that you have more money than your assets, than your income.
Sources of income.
Exactly. So could you explain to us where you've gotten this money from? And the truth is that often that money is proceeds of crime. You know, my cousin was in a business or is employed, and we put together this business, and because they know the accounts are likely to be investigated, they tell me, oh, just hold this money for now, or let's register something in your name, let's buy land or cars or something. And so it's a civil procedure that doesn't go through the long criminal process. and yet we get the same end goal. If you cannot explain to us, then the court says, okay, your explanation is not sufficient. So the initial burden is on the investigator, the EACC, to establish, is there really sufficient case? And then we come to court, and the burden shifts to the person who's being investigated, and they are told to explain. And in those cases, we are getting a lot of money back into the system, because it's just, you cannot explain it, then let's get the money back. And it's paid back to, if it was Migori County or Kiambu County, the money goes back there.
Tick.
Yes.
That is civil. ODPP is criminal.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, but the ODPP is where we see cases going, and they're not ending up with. So if somebody has been told return 100 million, 2 billion shillings, see, that's big money. That's a big profile person. They've been forced to relinquish all these assets, forfeit them back to the state. Sour. The Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions is charged with making sure that there is criminal prosecution and conviction for the crime that the person has committed.
Yes.
On those ones.
Then
what happens? And
that's the one that I'm talking about. So I know this was a little bit back, but it's something that we are still fighting even in the High Court. You recall that I think it was last year, we had a conviction on the NSSF case where people were fined 2.4 billion. Now, what we are saying is that once we have identified your assets, we go to court and we say, the court is like, no, the ODPP proved its case. It's proved its case that this money left public accounts and went into a private area, and it wasn't well done. Then we need this money to come back. So we go after your assets because of that, and we're like, okay, sell these properties and let's get the money back. And in the meantime, the people who are charged in those cases, they're still in jail, because if you don't give us the money, then you're not going home. So they were sentenced to between 8 and 12 years each, and they're still in jail, because really, like we said, for us it's even more important that we get the money back rather than having you in jail. And we have many cases that we've gotten convictions. Some are not as large, but do not reach those high amounts of billions, but for us we feel every conviction is a victory. Because let's talk about the convictions that we get from police officers who are collecting bribes on the road. It may not seem so. An officer is arrested, and at the time of arrest on that date, he has collected 10,000 shillings. What we are saying is that the reason we get this person off of the roads is that as at 11 a.m. you have 10,000. How much money do you have at the end of the day? How much money have you collected at the end of the month, at the end of the year? So it's a consistent collection, a consistent seeping of funds that should be going towards other purposes and building the nation, but this individual is collecting money for himself and for his own private benefit. And so we are saying, let's remove you from your office. You're unsuitable to serve in this office of the police. Let's get someone in this place who will do a better job than what you're doing.
Is there, because you talk about agencies and support that comes across, in the fight against corruption, the war on graft, to say let's move a little bit, further along in terms of these cases, is there complete cooperation and cohesion amongst the bodies that are tasked to fight graft? ODPP, EACC, DCI. We've seen the fights that have happened, or rather, the tension that has been between the ODPP and the DCI, for example. How then can you ensure that the war on graft continues in a forward trajectory if there's always DCI said, ODPP said, I didn't do? I don't want to say he said, she said, but I don't know who would be the he and the she. But ODPP said and DCI said or didn't say. Can you really then say we're making strides if agencies that are tasked with this crucial work sometimes don't agree?
I would say that we're making strides. I think that tension in every relationship, in every working relationship, there's always going to be tension. Sometimes there's difference of opinion. One institution feels, no, this is the way we should go, and that the other institution says, no, I don't think we should go in this way. And I think that that's why the Constitution gives everybody their job. The EACC is mandated to do ethics and anti-corruption. The National Police Service have a larger mandate of handling all sorts of crimes, maintaining law and order and so on. And the ODPP has the job to prosecute. The judiciary has the job to make a decision between, the people who've been charged, the people who are saying, no, you've committed an offense. So for us, we say, and I think that the courts have agreed with us over the years, that the ODPP should focus on prosecution. We should not overstep and start dictating, for instance, how the EACC should conduct its ethics education. And the National Police should not say, no, I think this person should be charged. I think that the ODPP has made a mistake. And maybe we may make a mistake here and there, and there's a procedure for that. If you think the ODPP did not charge someone who ought to have been charged or charge someone who ought not to have been charged, let's go to the High Court. And the High Court has the job of determining, did the ODPP do the wrong thing? And if we feel the police have not done the right thing, we also go to the High Court and say, we think that the DCI is not doing the job that he should be doing. And an impartial arbiter makes that choice. But if we begin to have infighting amongst us, we're not going to do the job that the people have asked us to do.
However, you should not even trust each other so much. Like we've seen recently, it's because of over-trusting one another that cases have collapsed recently in court. Because the DPP trusted that the DCI was going to follow up this case as it's going on with further evidence, with further information, and then you realize that the person who was supposed to come and give you further information moved on. They are now in Malindi, enjoying and basking under the sun.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I think that there are times when a case has, there's a lot of, I don't want to say pressure, but you can see that a crime has been committed, and you can see that I have maybe 80% of my evidence or 90, and I'm saying, do I want to wait? Maybe as I wait, I'm going to lose my evidence. My witnesses are going to be interfered with before we go to court. And you say, let's go to court. And we've seen that sometimes that comes and bites us because we thought that we were going to be able to cover this 10%. And you know that for the court to convict someone, it's beyond reasonable doubt. And so if we don't get to that point before we charge, then the court is like, you did not prove beyond reasonable doubt. You didn't prove to the required standard. And so we agree absolutely as the ODPP. We say, no, let us make sure that we have watertight evidence as much as it is within our control. There are things that happen that are outside of our control. Sometimes we even feel, oh, no, the court did not understand our case. The court made a wrong decision. Like the witnesses came to court, the documents were produced, everything went well according to the investigative agencies and the ODPP. But when the court comes back, the court says, oh no, you did not prove it to the required standard. And when we feel, for instance, the magistrate's court made that mistake, we go to the High Court. And when we feel the High Court made a mistake, we go to the Court of Appeal. And I think that using the mechanisms that have been put in place, it's very effective. And I think that we should do that.
According to the Constitution, you're independent.
Yes.
The Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions is independent. Vituko ground, are you independent?
We are independent.
To what extent?
So we are independent with regard to making the decision to charge and the execution of our mandate. Of course, we are not an island, so we have to be funded by government. Our operations administratively is coordinated and connected to the government, but in how we do our work, we are independent.
So you don't get any political pressure to commence or drop cases?
No, because in the end, as the ODPP, we have to take accountability for the decisions that we make. If, let me take the example of where we have political pressure, for instance, to charge. And we charge someone and we don't have the evidence. When that person is acquitted in the end, we have to go to the civil court where they tell us, no, this prosecution was malicious. And we have to defend ourselves. And so if we are constantly charging because of political pressure, then our value or our stance in society, people are like, oh, you can't trust the ODPP. They don't really do what they need to be done.
Do you think recent happenings have done exactly what you're saying? Dented the confidence of the public in the capacity of the ODPP to actually prosecute anti-corruption cases?
Yes, I think that just because we had a number of significant cases that did not come to conclusion, that the public, they're like, but are you really serious? Are you really doing what we expect you to do? And for us, we say, don't let this recent happenings make you question the value of the work that we are doing. We really are doing a lot of work. There might be a number of cases, a couple of cases here and there that did not end up in convictions or that were withdrawn before we got to the end, but the work is still going on.
Yeah. So, you talk about unity in the war against graft, and that's the theme that we're looking at when this day is commemorated tomorrow and then going into the future after 20 years of fighting graft. Unity by whom?
By all of us. So we are talking about, we've talked about the institutions. So we are saying that the EACC needs to work with the ODPP. The ODPP needs to work with the judiciary. The judiciary needs to work with the prison system. The prison systems need to work with the police. So we are all working together as government, but more than that, this year, we are calling on the public. We are saying that the responsibility of fighting corruption starts with us. If we as individuals make the right choices, then we won't be having as many corruption cases as we are having. Right now, we are talking about students going to Form 1. I think selection is due to happen any moment. You want your child to go to a school that they don't have sufficient marks. They haven't qualified to go to that school. But you excuse yourself, no, but it's my baby. I want them to have the best. But who tells you that the person who qualified to that school doesn't want their child to have the best? Maybe they don't have the money to pay that principal to admit their child. So because they don't have it, when they come, they're told, oh, the slots are full. Your child can't come to this school. When we talk about, let's talk about traffic offenses that many of us are guilty of. I'm running late to a meeting, and so let me drive a little bit on the pavement. Let me overlap everyone else.
Just a little bit.
It's just for today, but is it really just for today? Don't think of corruption as the governor who's stealing 5 billion. Corruption starts with you and I. It starts with failure to adhere to the conditions that have been set in your office. If you're an accounting officer in an institution and you're being told, no, I need this tender to go to, my sister's child, or I need this procurement process to be skewed in this way, it's up to you to say, no, I don't want to participate. And if each of us stands up and says no, then we'll make a difference. Let's not be running, because you see what we are doing as institutions for many years, we are running after the horse that has bolted.
That's true.
But let's keep the horse in its
stable.
And I think we all as a country understand that, Annette. And what you're talking about is impunity. By the time impunity gets here, it's because impunity is the absence of accountability that just continues fueling impunity. We all understand that there's been a breakdown in law and order in very many instances. We create these institutions that, one, let us have cohesion in this country. All right, let's look at one another and avoid escalating issues within communities. So we create an institution that will address that. Another one that will address not just corruption, but ethics. That's going into our moral values. We create that. We even put a chapter in the Constitution that will talk about our values and ethics. We create an office of the DPP and we say, this one, we shall make it independent. The holder of this office shall not take direction from any human being, animal, or stone, and all those things to shield it. So that those institutions help to bring accountability, fight impunity, as they are also educating us and bringing the issue of values and morals back to us. Now, when we don't see impunity being fought, then there's no incentive to stop doing what you're doing. If you don't see impunity being fought, then if nobody gets punished for jumping the light, and they go and they leave you, and then you go and find traffic ahead, and you feel, so what was the point of me just standing at the lights? So now the institution that you belong to, the ODPP, has the big task of taking prosecution cases to court with sufficient evidence, while at the same time making sure that you're protecting the rights of everybody. including the accused. So when you go now publicly and you say, you know what, we have sufficient evidence against Ndu. Ndu colluded, did this with the other. And I have directed the police to arrest Ndu and take the Ndu to court tomorrow. Public drama and all. And then that case collapses. You have not upheld the right of the citizens because there is no accountability. And you've not upheld the right of Ndu, whose children have been arrested at the gate of their home or in their house in the middle of the night.
I agree with you. I think we bear a very heavy load, and we are cognizant of that as the ODPP, that the decisions that we make have far-reaching consequences. That, like you said, that the people of Kenya say, oh, we put you in place to do this work and you're not doing it. And many times the people who are accused, when the case goes on, even if it goes on for a year, that's a year, when you didn't come to work regularly, nothing else is happening, you're not sleeping well, your family is stressed, and so on. So we are cognizant of that responsibility, and we are cognizant of the fact that we need to protect public resources. And so I don't think that any decision is made lightly. That when you see someone being arrested, it's not done for the drama. It's not done because we want a public show. Because as at that point, the person making that decision, who's the DPP, is of the heavy view that there is sufficient evidence. That later on, unfortunately, something might turn up and that decision, the information that he had at that time was not accurate. And so even when that case is being withdrawn, it's not being withdrawn lightly. There's a lot of conversations and a lot of decisions that have to be made to see if we have a gap. Is this a gap that can be filled? And many times we even go back to court and say, listen, we've realized that we have a big gap here, that if this gap is not covered, then we won't end up in a conviction. And many times the court tells us, go back, you have this new evidence, let's supply this new evidence, give the defense time to peruse the evidence, and let's proceed with the case. So it's not that in every instance where we realize there's a gap, we withdraw. Sometimes it can be filled, but there are times it can't be filled. There are times that we have to accept and fall on our sword and say, no, this decision was the right decision at the time, but at this point, it's not the right decision. And so that we don't cause further injustice, we are asking to stop the case at this point.
Are high-profile cases harder to adjudicate than the lower ones? Because, again, public perception, which many could argue is perception and not the case, but public perception, just as importantly, would be that it's easier to go after somebody who's lower in profile or status than somebody else. And that's why we see that it's quick to say, okay, you earn 50,000 shillings, but you have property worth 350 million. It's not possible. Let's go after you. If we saw the same thing happening with a governor or a member of parliament, it would be more difficult to go after that person. Why would that perception be formed?
So it is a little more difficult because of the opportunities and privileges that higher profile individuals have. So for instance, if I'm an accountant at a lower level accountant, for instance, with government, if I have some extra money, where am I keeping my extra money? Probably I bought a shamba back home. I've bought my wife a new car. Sometimes I've bought a new car that even your colleagues are like, may afford that gari. But if we're talking about this person, they leave the country and go to Jersey Island and open a company there and deposit the money there, or to another country, and so the how the money is hidden is a little more complex. And so for us to realize, you have unexplained assets, we have to have a lot of bilateral agreements. We have to do a lot of mutual legal assistance. Some countries, we don't even have those agreements with them, and you try to get there and they're like, yeah, we can't help you. You just sort yourselves out in your country. Us guys, our lives are continuing well. And again, we are fighting. Many times we are developing country fighting, dealing with very developed countries, and some countries are, they're just unwilling to cooperate with us to pursue those assets. So sometimes that is the case. So and it's the same. It's really the example that people talk about, mwizi wa kuku. Mwizi wa kuku is easy. First of all, even your neighbors are like, but we unanga kuku. They are willing to come and testify.
Is hanging out of your mouth.
It's already hanging over your mouth. Versus this other person who they can even, I have an accountant who cover my trucks. I have company upon company that the money moves here and